Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bestseller Live. I'm your host, Cynthia Johnson, and I am joined today by an incredible author, an author of 8 books, who's been on this show previously, Robert Glazer. Robert is a serial entrepreneur, leadership thinker, and founder and chairman of Acceleration Partners, a global leader in partnership marketing. He has nearly 2 decades of building and leading award-winning teams recognized by Glassdoor, Entrepreneur, and Fortune for their culture and performance. While himself being named twice to Glassdoor's list of top CEOs for small and medium companies in the US, he also has a weekly newsletter, Friday Forward, that reaches more than 200,000 readers, as well as contributing to so many different publications across the web and in print. His new book, The Compass Within, a little story about the values that guide us, is what we are here to talk about today. Robert, welcome to Bestseller Live.
Thanks for having me, Cynthia.
So this is the second or third time you've been on the show. This is your 8th book.
It is. So I have I don't know what the book to show ratio is, 3/8 or 8/3 maybe at some point.
No, that's incredible, the effort that goes into all those books. But I can tell even just by the title that this one is definitely needed right now. And we should all be pretty grateful that you wrote it.
I joke with people that I think my book is the answer to all the world's problems. And when I say that tongue in cheek, I do think a couple things. One, the people are inherently tribal right now, and they're being pulled into things that don't make sense and joining teams and things that are incongruous. And you're just like, what's going on? And I think people are tribal when they've lost that anchoring of their values and knowing what they value and being willing to stand in that. And so I think, a lot of us have a sense of what we value, but to be able to articulate that, understand that, and then say, no, I'm not while I am part of this group, I am not going along with this behavior or this activity. It just goes against my values. I think is a powerful thing that people are missing right now.
Yeah, the values, and in the book you call them core values, right? So these are
I think at the top of the echelon, there are a lot of things that we value, right? I just think for each of us, there are these kind of 3, 4, 5 principles that are most important and sit upon everything else. And we are happiest when we are environments aligned to them, and we are frustrated when we are forced to go against them.
Was there a specific situation or moment in your life where it just clicked? You're like, I have to write this book?
It was a little bit of a process of when I wrote my book, Elevate, I talked about core values. I figured out my core values in 2013. It began a total change in my life with my family and my business and my personal life kind of realigning around them. When I wrote about the importance of values in Elevate in 2019, the most common thing I got asked was, okay, I'm with you on this. How do I do it? And I was like, well, it's complicated. I went through this whole process, and I had been using that process as a leadership training program at our company. And we had taken, 50 or 100 people through it, and it was producing really great outcomes in terms of them understanding their values and how they led from them. And it was part of our personal development program. So I turned that into a course. I opened it up to everyone who said, how do I do this? And a couple thousand people took that course, and I got great notes and thoughts from people. But I know a lot of people won't go into a course. And so I thought about, how do I turn this into a book? And I just kept envisioning this book on core values that no one wanted to read. It was called On Values, and you'd walk by it in the store. People roll their eyes when they hear about core values. So I was like, I wonder if I could show this, because anytime I have spoken to an audience, people read the book or otherwise, they're like, oh, this is actually different from all the BS stuff that we talk about every day. But I needed a prompt to get people into that. And someone was just telling me on a call, I have sort of a mastermind group, and they were like, they just, all these points in their life that they resonated with Jamie. Jamie's just a mirror for all of us, right? And the character in the book, and sort of going through these points in time where we are, in conflict with our value or aligned with our values. So I thought the parable format might be effective to show this to people, and it does seem to be resonating.
So it's parable versus framework. Now I know you do like workshops on this, and
Yeah.
when did you make that? Like, one, is this the first parable you've written?
First parable. Yeah, it's
Okay.
different. And the framework is contained within the parable. So much like Pat Lencioni, you're kind of shown it in a story and then you're told it explicitly at the end. And I think some people will get it better being told it, and some people will understand Jamie meets a mentor in the story and the mentor coaches him through the core values discovery framework. And so you get to watch it being applied in real time.
And when you were naming these characters, which is a new for nonfiction authors, where did those names come from?
I don't know. Is this like an association, like generic names that came into my head? My kids are all characters in the book, but they're all like none of the main characters because I didn't want to have an argument about that. So they're all, I think Chloe's probably, it's my daughter's name, is probably the bigger character out of all of them. I don't know where, but I got to think more about that because I caused some problems with that in the past. I used my brother's name as a fictional person who's, you don't want to be around in the book Elevate. I didn't even think of it. I think it was just like, I need a name. Like, what's a name? Oh, I know this name. It wasn't in that context at all, but I need to be smarter about that. And Westville is not a real town in the book either. Someone accused me. There's a town called Weston, and they were like, how could you say all these things about Weston? Are people pissed at you? And I was like, what are you talking about? It's not a real town. The town I use is a made up town.
Oh, that is interesting. I mean, especially you're getting that kind of feedback, and the idea is that the main character is basically torn between growing and ambition, right? And then ethical alignment with their own core values.
Jamie's a up and coming 20-year-old who's doing great at work, is engaged, is thinking about moving with his fiance, and they've moved to this town called Westville and rented there while they think about buying. And kind of on the surface, he has it all, but there's some like stuff going on below the surface, and it sort of starts this process of discovery around why are things frustrating me in all of these situations. And then when he has that clarity, he's going to make some big changes in what I call the big three, which is your relationship, your community, and your vocation. And once he has that clarity, it's really easy to him to see which of the things that are real like structural core value problems and which are not.
No, I feel like the location is clear, but what's included in your relationship bucket?
Relationship is your partner, right? If you and your partner, my daughter's 22, and she tells me that like the whole dating apps are actually all switching now. They're going away from strangers to people that like these are sort of the popular ones. But when you think about what a lot of people, and I big asterisks, I am not a relationship consultant. I know more about what not work maybe under this rubric than otherwise. But you're listing like all these surface structural things you have in common, likes music, likes to ski, likes whatever. And when you think about the people that are married and stuff, they tend to be like total opposites, right? And there's some harmony in that. And what those relationships need is shared values. So we're drawn to these surface level things. And I think we tend to overlook, like, do we fundamentally share the same values? Because you start to have kids, decide on your community, make important decisions. That's where the rubber hits the road. And I think people can confuse that both directions. They could have, not a lot in common on the surface, but deep values orientation, or they could have a lot in common on the surface, and then they could have real conflict with their values. But I don't think anything in the big three works if it's not fundamentally aligned with your values. I don't think you can have a job or career that's fulfilling that doesn't align with your values. I don't think you can be super happy in a community that's not. I certainly don't think you can be in a relationship where you're kind of forced to compromise your values.
And then you have the location. You ideally would live there with your relationship. So
yeah, they go hand in hand, right? So if you and your spouse or partner want totally different types of communities, that's problematic as well. Look, simple example, if someone may have health or vitality as a core value, and it may have come because of a health scare or something, and really like they want their they want pickleball and groups that are about socialization, and okay, great, you might want to live in Park City. If you live in Newcastle, England, where everyone goes to the bar at 12 o'clock and comes home at 11, like that's just not, if that's something that's really important to you, that's just not the right place. You're either gonna not go and feel left out of the whole scene, or you're going to go and not feel really good. You're like, I don't really want to be drinking 6 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and this, I mean, I don't know, we probably go into this in the details. I don't know how much you want to share here, but this is a young person who's married, so they
engaged.
Engaged. And they met early. They're living in this town. What is it, fear that sort of keeps the values unaligned, or is it just lack of understanding that they need to be spoken? Or
most of us operate from our values from like an electric fence test. Like we hit the electric fence and we get electrocuted and we go, oh, that's really bad, I should probably go away from that fence over here. And then I run into another fence over here, and so eventually like I stay away from all the electric fences. But it's almost like you can't see the fence because you don't have it named. You just know, like, oh, let's pretend they're invisible electric fences, right? This is the analogy. And I get electrocuted here, and I'm like, okay, stay kind of away from that zone. And then I get electrocuted here. And so I figure out kind of where to navigate. The problem is I've been burned a lot of times, and I also don't understand like the margin. So I think a lot of people navigate around their values. When you actually articulate them in a way that they're super clear, actionable, not one word like integrity or family, words that tell you decisions that you should do or not do, then those are all super illuminated, and you know where to go and not where to go, and you get there much faster.
And as you get burned over and over again, are there ways to, I don't know, like slow down or identify the gap between your value and what's being spoken? So like say a company is telling you it values one thing, but clearly it doesn't.
I think this is a challenge for a lot of people. First, identify your values. Then you can clearly decide whether, because a lot of the companies, what they're saying doesn't match what they're doing. So then you can see like, look, I'm someone who really believes in building community, and this company is all about individualism. Like this is not a company I'm likely to be happy in. They might say we all live as a team, but they might reward rugged individualism. So that's the behavior that you're going to get.
Okay. And then they all come together. So he's moving, he's engaged, his life is both falling apart and coming together simultaneously.
Yeah.
And then he goes through this values exercise. Can you explain sort of what those steps are for defining values?
Yeah. So the process starts with answering 6 questions. And I have these at robertglazer.com/6 if people want them with kind of a video. But you take 6 pieces of paper and you answer these behavioral based questions. And they're designed to start to pull out some of the DNA of the values that you can use as themes. And it goes from things like what do people come to you for help and advice for? What are times in your work when you've been super engaged in what you're doing? And like, what is like something qualities you can't stand in other people? And as you fill out and answer these questions, you will start to see a lot of themes, and you'll group these things together, and then you'll put them through something that I call the kind of core validator. And this ensures that like it helps you make decisions. And it's, it's sort of a 4-part test. The first thing is, can I make a decision on this theme? Because that's the whole point of a value. The second one is, does the opposite of it cause great discomfort? When you violate a core value, that's the electric fence. It should feel pretty bad. So if you say if the opposite of it's like, yeah, it's okay, like that's probably not the right thing. And then is it more than one word or phrase? Because I haven't really seen one word values that can be super clear. And then is it worded in a way that you could objectively rate yourself on it? So instead of integrity and, family and things like that, you would get, here are some values. I had some of the group coaching sessions from people who bought the book and did the work. These are like kind of the things that people had as their values. And just think about these differently. Like someone had acknowledge others, make your own choices, see both sides, assume positive intent, have the hard conversation, advocate responsibility, make it simple. This was not all one person. These were ones I wrote down because I really liked them. These are super differentiated things, and you know what it means. And this person talked about, I'm really happy when I step in situations, and they had actually, one person had assume positive intent and have the hard conversations as a value. And so actually it was really important to her, that combination, that you don't go in guns a-blazing, but you also like have the difficult conversation. And it goes to the other way something's a value is can you identify the root? When you pull up the root, it is a childhood experience. And these roots come in two forms. It's kind of a formative childhood experience. They come in things that you really liked and are doubling down on, and things that you were painful and you are trying to do the 180 degree opposite direction of. And so, someone who has a core value, and I would ask them this, and they'll always answer me, have the hard conversation. Like either you had a family that was super direct, or you had a family that was really conflict avoidant, right? Like there tends to be no in between, like a value like that. And they will usually answer, yeah, you know what, my mom was all about directness and this and that, and or we never talked about anything difficult in our family, and uncle whatever moved out, we didn't mention it, and the dog went away and we didn't mention it. And so like it became really important to me as an adult to not avoid having the hard conversations.
I had this conversation with someone recently about first memories. And is it your first memory because you latch onto something that you care about, or did it become your first memory and you started caring about it? And this is like, yeah, so to hear you say that, yes, those core memories are such a huge,
it's flashbulb, right? There's a conversation you'll remember for the rest of your life that person has no knowledge of in their memory. In fact, I told a story in the book that I was a little worried about a sort of core value disconnect with another parent, about a very specific thing that happened that I was sort of worried about. Like, they don't live near us anymore or whatever. But then I'm like, they probably have no recollection of this, because it wasn't a memorable thing from their side. It was a sort of, I was kicking myself for days about it, but it's probably gone from their memory altogether.
Yeah, especially when they're kids. When they're like 4. My daughter's like, tell this whole thing, and she's like, doesn't remember even seeing me that day. Like, okay.
Right. There's got to be some trauma or some reason. Like I remember my car skidding when I was 17, and it's like slow motion. I can remember where I was, and like, but I have but other memories are just gone. So there's something that causes that recorder to just do it. And I think what we learn from, and what's interesting, is before we have the moral reasoning, we have the intuition, which is like, I like this and it's comforting, or I don't like this and it's not comforting. And I think we make a promise to ourselves to do the opposite, but you end up basically doing that. I had someone last week that they had a core value of reliability and stability. And I said, look, you either came from a household or where everything was on fire. And they were like, I had 2 alcoholic parents. My brother and I basically raised them. It was a constant mess. And so stability is like super important for that person, right? I think I always say it's like a purpose and pain thing. I think they're good at creating stability now. They were forced to do it under adversarial situations, but now it's something that they're good at.
And at the very start of this, you said the first one, which I thought would love to dive a little deeper, is you can make a decision.
Yeah.
So like a declaration, like this is the thing, or
most important thing, right, is you can make a decision, right? So again, your core value is have the hard conversation, right? I'm sitting with myself, and Cynthia just said this thing that kind of offended me, and I'm leaving the room, and I'm like, I got to decide whether to. I think if you're clear that that's your value, then you're going to feel better by having the conversation. You're going to feel more aligned by having the conversation. And I can give you an example of this. I was on a call for an organization yesterday. that's rapidly kind of growing and supposed to be exclusive, and there's no membership standard. And this has been driving me crazy. And I have a core value of respectful authenticity and find a better way. And I said, look, everyone keeps saying we're focused on quality, but you're telling me we're going to grow like this, and we have no standard of what the member has to be, like other organizations like YPO and EO do for a reason, right? Because you need pureness. And I kind of said this on the call, and I could tell some people were annoyed and frustrated. And then someone said, hey, I'm actually working on this. Let's talk. This person called me later, and they were like, I totally agree with you. This is whatever. And I'm like going to be in charge of this soon. And will you help me with this? And will you work on this with me? So I said what I deeply believed needed to be said. And it connected with someone who shared the same values. And that matters more to me than the other 8 people who probably rolled their eyes. I'm like, well, you again with this. but at my core, I'm like, this isn't right. Like this, like this, like saying that it's quality, but not having a defined standard of what quality is not right. Like, it's just, I can't, my brain can't reconcile this.
That's also really the stickiness of life, is to figure out that if you want people like you around you, you have to be like you.
Well, Bray, I to your point, like put out your signal, and don't worry about giving that half the people ignore it. Like, find the people that match your wavelength, that connect to you, that are meaningful.
And how do you merge core values? Is it like separate? Your family gets core values and your business gets core values, and then
no. The whole point is that if you get it right, it should describe all of those situations the same, right? And that's why family is not a good core value, because what I want to know is, what do you mean by family? Do you mean like you take care of the people closest to you? Like, look, there are very different definitions of family. Some people might mean you always show up, and that's how they show up as a leader. Some people do mean that, like, family gets a free pass on anything. Like, my family is very important to me, but I am actually not the type of person who would just excuse family behaving horribly. Some people, that is what they mean, right? They mean you take care of your people. Like, it is a blood loyalty. Like, that is not my value, even though I value family. So that's why it's important to be very specific, because that is how you show up in all these different ways.
Yeah. And then I think the next layer of the question is, if you're working with someone, you're married, do you have a shared values, but also maybe a couple of your own?
Well, you have your own values. And then the question is whether they don't have to be in unison, but they probably need to be in harmony. And what you can't have them is all be antithetical to each other. So you can have shared values as a family that you create, but shared values are where you try to double click on the overlap. You can't, everyone is their autonomous operating system. And it would make sense that you would want to come together like my wife and I don't have all the same values, but our values are in harmony. They're not in opposition to each other.
Okay, great. And that can be true for a company too, as long as they're not like, you want some that are in harmony, but others could just...
Yeah, it's not going to be in unison to the company. But like, if the company has a value of teamwork and you're really someone who's a rugged individualist, like, that could be problematic.
Yes. Well, I have to say, I love the approach of telling a real story. I think that is, or a parable, not a real story, but like a concept versus a traditional nonfiction. And I feel like he might be onto something. So this could be popping up more and more. As we reach the end, I do have a last question. If you could give the reader one takeaway, one thing, they only remember one thing, what is it?
That everyone's worried about the alignment, and you can't have the alignment without the self-awareness. So it's really hard to know whether things are a lot aligned until you do this work and figure out the answers. So they're always trying to jump to step 1 or 2, and then now 30 speeches and everything I've been doing since the book launch. Everyone's like, how do I get the answer in an hour? Like, how do I boil down your 6-month process that you went through to an hour? And what's the shortcut? And what's the, like, if you want to do this work, it will be the most meaningful work. I think between the book and the course, and I've made this as easy as and accessible and probably cut 90% of the work, but it is not a quick hack thing.
Yeah, that's incredible. I urge everyone to read the book, especially if you are running into issues with not feeling aligned with values, probably because you haven't realized your own yet.
Yeah.
This is a great way to do that. Where can we find you? Is it robertglazer.com?
Yeah. And if you're, again, robertglazer.com, if you're in, and you can sign up for Friday Forward there. And if you're interested in those, just the starting with those 6 questions, it's robertglazer.com/6.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us again. Congratulations on the latest book and Happy New Year. For those of you watching, we'll be back next week with another episode of Bestseller Live. I'm your host, Cynthia Johnson. See you then.